All right. Welcome, everybody. It is 7 o'clock on Wednesday. That means it's time for Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome back, Mary Beth. And welcome, Chris LaRoche. How are you, sir?
Oh, it is so good to be back. Thank you
Well,
for
it's good to
asking
have
me
you
back
back.
again.
It's good to have you.
This is a
Yeah,
long
the
time
shadow
coming.
is here.
I don't know why we haven't done it sooner. I apologize.
Yeah,
That's
this would have
all
been
right.
Tonight we are doing 1996, The Phantom. This is actually one of my favorite movies. I really do like this movie.
Mine as well.
So, but before we get into that, I think Mary Beth has some news.
I
Mary
have
Beth,
just
do the
a little bit
news.
of news. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 pieces of news, and I'm going to fly through them because I'm excited to talk about the Phantom. News number 1: who is the biggest Strange New Worlds fan? I think Anson Mount is making a case that it might be him. He's been on. He's been at a couple of different events lately, talking to reporters and doing interviews, and he has been pumping Strange New Worlds up. Left, right, and center, telling reporters that the Lower Decks crossover is not the strangest episode of the season. He has high praise for Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome. He calls that episode tremendous fun and straight up comedy, and they had a blast with it. But he says that's not even the craziest thing we did. There's one episode I'm thinking towards the end of the season. You'll know it when you see it, and it required us to work many weekends. So he says we tried a couple of things that have never been done on Trek before. I hope he's right. I hope Strange New World season 2 is a great season. They haven't given us like a date yet, though, but that's okay. News item number 2. It was Martin Luther King weekend. I had a little extra time, so I watched TV for you, my gentle viewers. Here's my reviews. I watched Velma. Bad. Don't watch Velma. I watched Willow. Good. Watch Willow. That was really, really cute and really sweet. It was just fun.
What's Velma on? What platform?
Velma was HBO. It was the Scooby-Doo. They took the Velma character and gave her backstory, and it's getting like completely trashed by both critics and viewers alike. It's bad. Willow was awesome. Warwick Davis was excellent. And then the other night I watched the very first episode of The Last of Us, and that
is supposed to be very good.
Off to a great start. I had never played the game.
No, me neither.
Fascinating. It's another look, guys. It's another zombie show, but it's a very good.
It's kind of like Resident Evil, I think, right?
Yeah. To me, it's more like Walking Dead. But I hadn't played the game. But they have a very interesting little science. Like
the game is very critically acclaimed. Yeah, the game is very. I've never played it, but I understand it's very good.
Supposedly they're staying very, very tight to the game. I thought it was great. It's another show at Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal is a busy man. He's a busy man because they also dropped another Mando teaser trailer. Everyone is super excited. We're ready for the Mandalorian on March 1st. So that was news 2 and 3. Moving on, the Power Rangers, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That franchise is celebrating its 30th year anniversary in 2023, and members of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers cast are returning for a new special on Netflix called The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, and they're all back. Like it's gonna be like David Yost is back as Billy, Walter Emmanuel Jones is back as Zach, like all your favorite characters, including Barbara Goodson's Rita Repulsa. Like they're all back, so it should be kind of a fun time for those of you who are down with the Power Rangers. I just talked about Mando, and I'm not going to talk about Justin Roiland tonight because I'm kind of mad at him right now. And that's it for the news. He got in trouble with a lot. Rizzo, what are we drinking tonight?
What are we drinking tonight? We are drinking the Golden Phantom. How it kind of fits, right? So it's got cognac, orange blossom honey, or I'm sure if you just have regular honey, that's fine. Liqueur 43 and pineapple juice and lemon juice.
What is liqueur 43?
I'm not really sure. I'd have to look that one up, honestly.
And a pinch of salt.
But I'm sure it's probably somewhat available. But sounds good. I don't know what the liqueur 43 is, but probably worth a try. I really should try some of these.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, it's on the Facebook page if you want to look that one up.
Hello, Martin. Hello, Sue.
Yeah, a lot of people on
Hi,
tonight.
Bill.
You brought a lot of people with you.
Yay.
My biggest concern the last time was getting here on time.
Oh, you're fine. You're on time.
I didn't get home in time.
So he was an hour early.
Not the last time.
The mail never stops.
No, it
yes,
does. Yes, it
And it's
does.
Publishers
But
Clearinghouse Day.
It does, and I did.
Well, all right.
Anyway, so it's 1996. This movie came out. I did see this in the theater. In fact, I have a very, very vivid recollection of seeing this movie in the theater. In fact, I went to Fuddruckers for dinner afterwards.
You remember that? Oh,
I
wow.
remember that.
Oh yeah,
I remember. I really, really enjoyed this film.
I do
This
believe
to
I
me,
put-
the thing with this
That's-
film is there's so many things that strike a chord with me. It has so many elements that I loved as a kid. So many things. First, you have this action hero, who you have seaplanes.
Yes.
You've got
Yes.
pirates. You've got a pirate base that's like underwater with
in
like
the sea cave.
this
Yeah.
kind of
Pirate ship.
steampunk stuff mixed with
And
pirate
our
stuff.
hero has his own secret cave.
The hero has his own
Yeah.
skull cave. And it just
It wouldn't
it's just
surprise
there's
me
just
for
so
certain
many
fat
things that
person
fall in place. I mean, when you think about this, the Phantom really was where the serials and stuff came from. Like we saw
Yes.
Indiana Jones. We kind of compare this movie to Indiana Jones, but really, the Phantom predates, of course, Indiana Jones, and that's where they got their idea.
And also one of the writers, or I believe one of the people involved was one of the writers on Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom as well.
Yes, actually, I think you're absolutely right about that. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about the Phantom's history. Like, tell us, I know he started in 1936, I want to say.
Yeah.
1936.
He
Tell us about that.
predates Batman,
He
Superman.
does.
He is the
predates Batman.
first.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is the very first masked, costumed hero. He beat Superman by about 4 years, 3-4 years. He got his start in the comic strips. It began about February 17th, 1936 in the dailies. He made it to the Sunday strips on May 28th, 1936.
Wow.
He was created by Lee Falk, who you might recognize the name, especially if you happen to be a fan of Mandrake the Magician, which he also did. His the artist that first did it after he stopped doing it was Ray Moore, almost right away, and he did it almost the whole run on the strips.
Yeah, Moore worked on that up until almost the 70s. Is that right? He worked on it up until the 60s, I think.
Well, from what I understand, after Falk died, the comic strips still continued.
Oh, yes. It actually,
They did.
I think
Like,
it's
just
still
like Dick Tracy, after Gould died, it continued on after that. I kind of came into this with the Phantom, like most of us, through the Gold Key comics when they came, because I was fascinated by it. But they've run pretty much consistent. They're very big in India, believe it or not, as well, because there was always some. Falk originally had him set in Africa, but because of the name Bengala and a few of the other names used, there was some conjecture on whether or not it took place somewhere in India rather than Africa. And the fact that even in the Billy Zane movie, he's in the cage with a tiger, and that he pets, which would lead to that suggestion at all as well, since tigers are not found in Africa.
Right.
But he was around quite a while. He was considered the standard for action, intrigue, and romance. Yeah, because again, unlike other heroes, remember, there was Lois Lane, would she ever get Superman and all that, which didn't happen until decades later. Batman, the poor victim either died or moved away. But romance is a big part of the Phantom because it's a legacy hero. A big part of
Yes.
the mystery is finding the next person.
Yes, can you explain that? So pretend there's someone watching who doesn't know who the Phantom is and how each successive Phantom can you explain who the Phantom is and how he becomes the Phantom?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I thought the movie touched on it.
The
very
movie does
well.
a really good job, actually.
The
of
movie-
seeing
Yes,
that little.
Yeah, they did touch on it at the end when they're showing the
Yeah.
Yeah, he explained
The
it
very
further.
beginning too. The very
Mausoleum.
beginning starts with the
Yeah,
story.
as always, with the tagline for those who came late.
There's a king.
Right.
But oddly enough,
Hi,
he
Chris.
started off as his father and son, same Christopher Walker. The name Kid didn't come into the picture first as a nickname and then as regular name until after the movie serial. So Christopher Walker, who in fact was one of the crew members with Christopher Columbus on one of his voyages. On his last voyage, they were attacked by pirates, and the father was killed. The son, who went overboard and washed ashore, and was saved by the Bengal natives, who took him, raised him, and took him to where the Skull Cave is. I'm sure a certain bat author saw that and started thinking about it. But they gave him the rings, and
Show again. Show for a second so we can see. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Perfect.
skull ring. This is the good mark, called the good mark, and the skull ring, which usually left an imprint on someone's jaw.
That's right. And the
when
bad
he got
guy,
hit.
you see the bad guy at the beginning of the movie. He actually
Yes,
uses it, doesn't he?
James Remar.
Yeah.
Right
Yes,
now.
that's James Remar. Yes.
Yes, but he had to recite the skull oath, how he will fight piracy, tyranny, ruthlessness in all its forms, and my son and my sons will carry on for me and their sons as well. The comic strips were among the most popular, actually one of the most popular comic strips, along with Flash Gordon, Dick Tracy, and so on. The Phantom first saw a different incarnation in the serials. Serials were very popular
Yes.
back in the day, and in 1946, Western star Tom Tyler took the role. He was no stranger to superheroes because, in fact, he has his own little place in history. He was the actor that starred in, argumentably, and I agree with this, the greatest superhero serial of them all, one Captain Marvel. I don't know if you can see it. But 2 years earlier, he starred in that. And it was immensely popular. But again, like every other serial, you had budget things. The wolf was really a German Shepherd, and they couldn't hide it.
Now, in this film, that really was a wolf.
Yes, in the film it really was.
Oh,
And
yes,
I know they
it
had
was.
some concerns
In the film,
about
it
because
was.
you can only train a wolf so much. It's not a dog.
Yeah, you would just you go from
Very well.
here to here, and you get a
Right.
reward.
And I know,
Yes.
Christy Swanson was
Super
kind of
quick,
concerned that
Before you
she fell
continue,
off the horse.
I just put a YouTube link in the chat for everyone. It's it's the 1943 Phantom serial. It's 4 hours long, so don't try watching it all at once.
Because
But
it's
it's all
the captains.
15 chapters, or all 15 episodes, I guess, of the
Chapters.
1943 serial. If you guys are interested in seeing that. But anyway, go ahead, Chris. Continue with your
Okay.
history.
Interestingly enough, the second Phantom, like I said, mentioned romance, which was a big part of it. The granddaughter of Christopher Columbus was the second Phantom's wife. And as an interesting change, the 17th Phantom was female. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that.
That's cool. What
yeah,
year was
she
that?
took
That's
over
awesome.
as the Phantom when her twin brother, Kit, was unable to.
Okay.
It's kind of vague whether it was an injury or he just couldn't.
Okay.
And she took over the role as the Phantom. She was the 17th Phantom. There have been the one with Billy Zane is the 21st.
Oh,
So
wow.
if we take
So they
this to
actually-
modern times, it's about the 23rd or 24th Phantom is probably where we would be now, probably 24th.
Wow, I didn't realize it had gone that far. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Hundreds
he
of-
mentions in the film that there's been 20 Phantoms
he did,
before
but
him,
24, yeah, he's the 21st.
so he's the 21st.
I guess,
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
Like I
and
said,
what
they did
happened-
keep
happened-
things pretty accurate to the history of the Phantom
did.
in the
They
movie. They
kept
did a
it-
really
yeah.
good job.
Very tight.
because they
of keeping
constantly
things in
referred to the Phantom Chronicles, which, like in Star Trek, journals were a big part of the Phantom's career. Because every time he needed some guidance or to research something that looked familiar, he would go back through the Chronicles to see if any of the previous Phantoms had encountered, like the Sin Brotherhood and so on, depending on what the situation called for. And of course, because it was a generational thing, everyone came to believe eventually that the Phantom was one person. He was the ghost that walks, the man that couldn't die, according to the comics and the comic strips. He had a prolific time on film, more so than I thought. In 1957, an unsold pilot was made, and I think probably to combat Johnny Weissmuller, who was playing Jungle Jim at the time during that someone needed another jungle hero, and Tarzan was still doing movies then. So I would assume he did. Now the interesting thing about that is Roger Creed played the Phantom. He was kind of on the short side and stocky, but he had a stunt history, and he was very good at it. What amazed me about this, why it was never released, was his guest stars for that episode were Paulette Goddard, Lon Chaney Jr., and Reginald Denny. Now, I know everyone's familiar with Lon Chaney Jr., but Paulette Goddard was a leading lady back in the 40s, and Reginald Denny was a character actor from the 30s through the 40s. I mean, these are not lightweight people at all. And I would have thought with that kind of pedigree, they would have at least, even if it was a one-off, they would have released it on television. I have it. I've seen it. You can see it on YouTube. It's quite good as far for what it is. It's a
We don't
cheap
know.
thing.
Yeah, we don't know why it didn't go.
No, it
picked
was
up.
unsold. So I don't know if they ever televised it or not, but they did complete it. And I just watched it again
There's
the
quite
other
a
day. So,
there's lots of shows that get pilots made that
That's
we
true.
never see
I know
the
that's
they never
true.
see daylight.
That's
yeah, but
true.
They didn't make
I
it.
would
They
have
didn't make
thought
the
with
cut.
the pedigree, I
Yeah.
would have thought with the pedigree of the co-stars. I mean, Paulette Goddard is no slouch, and Reginald Denny.
Those are familiar names. Yeah. Those
Yeah,
are
if you're a film
Yeah.
buff like me,
Yeah.
yeah, you look at that, and I had forgotten that. I looked at it, holy cow, and it was unreleased with
Wow.
these people. Granted, it was probably closer to the end of their glory days were behind them, but still.
But still. And so that was, you said that was 1957. And then were there any other Phantoms, or was the next one this one?
Oh, yeah, there were several. There was an animated show called The Defenders of the Universe. It was the only time that two of Lee Falk's creations, The Phantom and Mandrake the Magician, along with Flash Gordon,
The universe.
were on Saturday mornings. There were 65 episodes, and I think it ran from 86 to 91.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I know this.
Yeah.
No, that's
There
wait,
were
Chris.
several, there were several anime. I remember that was
Hang
really
on, there's
my
more
first
than one
introduction.
defender. One of them's a Voltron thing. I don't think.
Yeah,
This was
I
Voltron.
remember one of my first introduction to the Phantom was Saturday morning cartoon.
Saturday
That was
morning
the first
So
cartoon.
one-
that was
first I ever-
probably the one you saw.
Yeah, Yeah, I think it was. They paired it with. They had an animated version of Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was with
It
it.
would run with that, you know,
It
back
was
to
a
back kind of thing.
three-person team.
And I want to say there was also the Lone Ranger in there somewhere.
I think down the road,
Yeah.
like they had 65 episodes, so I'm sure he may have been a part of that as well. But initially, it was Emperor Ming doing his thing, and Flash and
Yeah,
the
I
other two
think,
coming in.
Chris, I think it was Defenders of the Earth, because Defenders of the Universe is a Voltron thing, which is kind of a
Well, it may the pilot may have been called that.
So maybe the pilot was Defenders of the Earth and they got picked up as something different. But if
Yeah,
you guys
like-
are trying to Google
Like
it,
Rizzo said, when the Lone Ranger probably entered the picture, that would have probably have
I
changed.
want to say the
I've
Lone
had
Ranger was
some-
its own show.
Maybe
don't
it
think it
was.
wasn't combined with these guys. But it was all the same like company
yeah,
producing this stuff at the
Yeah,
same time.
It was,
Yeah,
but
it was not
No.
Filmation because the animation wasn't horrible.
no, it's
No,
King
no.
Features. It's King Features Syndicate. But it's Flash
Well,
Gordon, Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, Mandrake's assistant
Right.
Lothar, and they are opposing
Yeah.
Ming the Merciless.
yes, and a few of their enemies as well. And
Yes.
talking about animated style, there was of course Phantom 2040. What made that very interesting was the fact that it was made in the same style by the same people that made MTV's Eon Flux.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I
oh,
think
it
I
is.
do
You can
remember
still
that
see
as
a few
well.
episodes of it on
I remember
YouTube.
Eon Flux. That was a weird little
It was
thing.
very bizarre. Well,
Yeah.
they made
Very
a feature
bizarre.
film of that as
Remember
well.
the eyelashes? Her eyelashes
Yes.
about to fly. Oh,
You can see the style right off the bat because the the Phantom is more slender than you normally expect him to be. The interesting thing, though, was the talent that they brought to it. Scott Valentine did the voice of the Phantom, but Margot Kidder was the main voice of the main villain in that one, and Ron Perlman was her henchman.
I love
Alan
that.
Oppenheimer was in there too. Those that know that name are and are familiar with the $6 million man know him as Rudy Wells from the original pilots. And just to make it interesting, Mark Hamill did some voices in there.
Oh,
And
he's good.
another interesting name, Deborah Harry. Does that
Debbie
strike
Harry,
a
like
bell with
Blondie?
anybody?
Blondie?
Possibly. Given the MTV pedigree of Eon Flux and this show, that would not surprise me at all if it was in fact Debbie Harry that was involved in it. But it was interesting. And
Interesting. So now that brings
one
us
more, and then we'll
Oh,
get
one
to the one more, and we'll get to the good stuff.
one more. Okay.
Uh,
Chris,
that-
get ready.
and it'll be very brief because
yeah,
this
yeah,
guy
yeah.
here, this is this is the latest television incarnation. MTV did MTV correction, Sci-Fi Channel did a version of the Phantom, and as you can see, it's radically different. They covered the history and everything, but unlike the Phantom, Kit was a reluctant hero, which was never the case with him. And they gave him that odd outfit he's wearing is all body armor and everything, which totally shoots down the premise of the Ghost Who Walks. After all, why does a ghost need body armor? Especially body armor that looks like body armor. So fortunately,
Well,
it was
there's a lot of suspension of disbelief even in all these films. So
Yeah, because they went
Did you
through the
guys
trouble.
notice? Like, did you look on Billy Zane? Like, did you notice his costume? It had like skulls.
yeah, there's details
Yes.
in it.
Like all these
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
skulls all over. It
Because
was
they
cool.
did that because if you notice, he has the belt buckle with the
Yeah.
skull emblem on it, but he's not wearing the striped trunks.
Yeah, they
No,
tried
they
it, but it looked
They
ridiculous.
tried it. They said it didn't look right.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So they
That's okay.
embroidered,
You know what?
so they silk screen the skull head. It's
Yeah.
very effective, but I think the reason it's so effective is because he worked so hard to get himself into shape
Yes.
with that
Yes,
movie.
he did.
Right.
Because,
He pumped quite a bit of iron for like
yeah,
a
and
year.
he studied the
For like a year
movements and
prior
developed
to
a fighting style that was kind of
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah. So
yeah,
Chris,
he read all the he was a fan of the comics
Yes, he had read the comics.
when he actually
It
when
was
he
the only
on
comic
another
he ever
film.
collected, as
Yes.
a matter of fact.
Yeah, he started in '89 when he was on a film that he got started reading it. So he always wanted to do this character. So it's kind of a matchup.
Yes, he did. He wanted to do it. So, Chris, what do you think about this movie's authenticity and what they tried to do? What do you think about it?
Oh, I think they really did a great job with it. I mean, right from the beginning, like when we did The Rocketeer, the very first thing you see is for those who came late, even though it's the start of the movie. Now, anybody that's a Phantom fan, you always get that tag on the Sunday strip because not everyone got to read it during the week. And of course there was, I mean, that immediately told you were in the right place, that they're going to be serious about this. And how can you possibly go wrong with the narration from Patrick McGowan? I mean, that voice you'd know in the dark.
Yes.
I mean, and I love the fact they used him as the previous Phantom.
Yes.
Oddly enough, a lot of the Phantom stuff, both animated and live action, they always had another actor usually playing the previous Phantom briefly. They did it with the Tom Tyler serial as well. And so you'd have that. I love the fact that he was the spirit of the Phantom previous to him. Of course, everyone knows who Patrick is if you're familiar with The Prisoner and Secret Agent, or Danger Man if you're across the pond. For me, Patrick is always going to be the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, with a laugh that could put the shadow to shame. I mean, one of my personal icons. But like Rizzo, I saw it in the theater. And the lavish camera work, especially when they're on the island, is take your breath away.
It was beautiful.
It is a very beautifully shot film. Yeah. In fact, the New York scenes alone, what they did to get all those, it was shot on actual New York street, but they got all those cars. And I always question, I'm like, I don't know if there was that much traffic even in New York in 1938.
Maybe.
I mean, it was just like this wall is almost like today with a project. But anyway, again, that scene where he jumps out of the cab and he runs across, that was actually they did that all in one shot. Yeah, they did that all in one shot. That was
he did the plane
a lot of practical stuff. Yeah. Well, Billy didn't do they had a stuntman do the jumping in the cars, I'm pretty sure.
But he did
he did the pontoon thing.
He did hang on that plane, yeah.
He did hang on the plane pontoon. I believe he did that stunt. So,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Billy Zane is kind of crazy. I mean, even Everybody Chooses has that bizarre bet. Like even he guest starred on Batman the Animated Series. What role is his character's name? Jason Blood, who transforms into the demon Etrigan.
He did play the bad guy in Titanic. So
yes,
I guess.
Yeah. He's I've always liked him as an actor. He does
one
well.
of the guys in the original Back to the Future. He was.
Oh, that's right. He was one of Biff's henchmen or Biff's buddy.
He outgrew it by the third one, but he was in the first one.
That's right. He was in Back to the Future. Yep.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. I mean, if you look at his career, he's done right up till today. He's still working. And
you just don't hear about him.
You don't hear about him that much. But
Titanic was the last big thing he did. Like every time during when I would watch the animated Justice League series, and I knew the character was going to be on there, I watched it because he has aside from the fact he's got killer good looks and everything else, his voice is just amazing to listen to. I mean, he can do it in inflection, what most actors can't. I mean, he's very subtle in that regard, and that makes him really good. It's one of the points, like I always keep my fingers crossed when they talk about reboots and everything. The beauty of the Phantom is you wouldn't need that because, again, it's generational. Right. Billy Zane, even at the age he is today, could still play that role, and the movie could be about the transition to the next Phantom.
You know, you're right. I expect he could still play that role. Yes.
So-
Yeah,
Very-
and the
very
fact
much-
that he would look older would only add to it because, yes, it's time now for the 22nd Phantom to take over.
Right.
It's
So
one of those few
how
great
did this
movies that a
film-
reboot is not necessary.
how did this
You just
film do
continue the
financially?
story.
This film did not do quite as well as they might have wanted. It cost them, where is it? It cost them $45 million to make, but it only did $23 million at the box office. However, at the time. However, since then, fans have discovered it. And I noticed, and Chris, I wanted to hear your opinion on this. I noticed when I was doing my research that I was watching reviews where people either loved it or hated it. And I noticed people who hated it, they didn't know the history. They didn't know the Phantom. They didn't know the comic book. And there was one guy he said the Nordic countries. I don't know if he meant that he was from Norway or where he was from exactly, but apparently the Phantom was quite big for a long time, kind of in Norway, Finland, Sweden, kind of in that area. And when the movie came out, he was like, no, this is all wrong. This isn't like the comic book I know. And then to his credit, he went back and did his research and did the history and started reading the older comics and was like, oh no, this was perfect. This movie was perfect. And he gave it a glowing review. So yeah, I've noticed.
When I saw this, I didn't have, other than, like I said, all I had my familiarity was that I didn't read the comic books. I had watched the cartoon as a kid. But again, to me, you don't have to be necessarily a fan of this character to like this movie, because it's so much. Did I mention it has seaplanes?
Yes,
it's got seaplanes, and that right there is a huge part in my book.
Oh, and can I point out?
And pirates. That's what I'm saying.
Pirates.
It had a pirate fortress that's like in a cave. I mean, it's like had everything I loved as a kid.
It is, and can I point out that it's PG? It's rated PG.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. The worst thing is the guy getting his eyes.
Yeah, the worst is the guy getting his eyes.
And they don't show it. It's off camera.
You didn't show it.
And I think they could have done without that. Honestly, I think that was the lowest part of the movie.
Yeah, but that was in keeping with Treat Williams.
Right, and you had to keep
the I think the thing of it is, part of the reason fans have discovered this again is it is part of what me and a lot of people refer to as the Pulp or 1930s-40s trilogy.
Yeah.
Which is comprised of course, The Rocketeer, which we covered, The Phantom, and The
Shadow.
Right.
And
the other
we all call it the Pulp or 30s trilogy, and they were discovered after they came out of the theaters. Again, I think because in part a lot of people didn't know, we grew up with these characters. I did. So I was so excited. But a lot of people didn't. So they were kind of on the periphery. You say Batman, Superman. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Phantom, everyone immediately, you'd be surprised how many people think of Phantom of the Opera.
Right.
Yes, even when I was trying to Google.
Even when you Google it,
Phantom
of the Opera quite a bit comes up.
It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
But he does have readership. He had his readership hit like 100 million worldwide.
All over the world. He is huge in Europe and India.
Yes, India. And one odd little thing was in India. For some reason, he's red. I think his costume is red.
It was.
And when they saw the movie, they were like, why is he purple?
Originally, his costume was black or blue because purple was a
ghost. Like gray or something, right?
Well, right. Anything in black and white came across as gray anyway.
Yeah.
So purple would come across as gray.
Color back in the day. That's why purple came later. But there have been colors of him being in red as well. I mean, but purple is my favorite color, so I'm going to go with the purple.
I think it works. I think it works.
It works.
One of the great things about I think this character is he's relatable in the sense that he's not a superhero in the sense that he has powers of any kind. He's just a guy in good shape and knows how to fight. Yeah. And I love the fact, I don't know why, that his major weapon is 2 pistols. I mean, he doesn't have anything fancy. There's no grappling thing. There's no utility belt. He's got 2 1911 45 pistols, and that's it. That's it. And he, and I always it just works to me. It just makes more sense that this was more realistic. If you could.
Well, the Phantom would incorporate more gadgetry because even in this movie, he had everything that was kind of cutting edge at the time with the radio. And through the comics, which I am a fan of too, his pistols would always be cutting edge of that time period.
Right, and I could see if they made a modern one that he would have, more modern weapons or maybe a few electronic gadgets, but not like Batman, where everything really Batman got away with everything he did. A little bit of
the
fighting
animated
style,
series
but
Batman 2040, which takes place in the future,
right?
He still maintains the exact same costume and the exact same look, but some of the gadgets he uses are intricate to that time period.
I also really like the fact that his nemesis really are the pirates. I mean, yes, Drax in this movie, but and not like it seems like every 1930s films, like they always use their bad guys are Nazis. It's always
they were the default bad guys,
right? They were the default bad guy because, like I've always said that nobody's ever offended by making the Nazis bad guys.
No one's ever offended by making the Nazis bad. Did you guys notice that there was a Drax and a Quill like in Guardians of the Galaxy in this? Was that? I wondered if was that like an odd little nod.
Well, Drax, that name. I mean, there was a Drax in James Bond Moonraker. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Drax.
I think it's one of those.
You need a villain, and you don't know what to name.
It's a good villain name.
It's a great
although Drax in Guardians was not a villain.
No.
Good point.
So let's talk about a few of these characters and we'll do a couple of the scenes because I really want Chris's feedback. Chris, what did you think about our bad guy, Treat Williams, who played, I can't remember the first name, but Drax?
Xander.
I don't know.
Don't you remember it begins and ends with X?
It begins and ends with X, that's right.
Okay. I don't know. You're probably going to hate me for this, but I think in a lot of ways, he was the weakest point in the movie because he could play a great villain, but and when I saw the blades come out, he was devious, he was cunning, he was dangerous, which made him a good foe for the Phantom. But then, from the time he threw the spear in the office, he went over the top. He went a bit off, to me at least. He went a bit off the reservation. He just got real loud, really kind of hammed it up a little bit. He looked more like a serial villain than a movie villain. For me.
Okay.
The pirate, the guy that played the lead pirate. He was dangerous and you knew it going out of the box.
Yes,
and
I enjoyed Carrie's work.
Of course,
he's been in
that time period, if you needed a bad guy or a number one henchman, there was only one guy for the job back in the 70s and 80s, and that was James Remar.
Yes.
He was from his role in The Warriors to his role in 48 Hours. I mean, and even when he played the good guy, oddly enough, in Black Lightning recently. I mean, if you needed a go-to bad guy, he was the man.
He has the voice. He had the voice for it. He's got that gruff voice. And
we talked about James briefly. He was going to be in Aliens. And unfortunately, I believe he was struggling with a substance addiction at that time. But he got himself cleaned up. He got himself back to work. And he did a lot of great movies. And this is one of them.
Oh, God. Yeah. This was at the height of his power when they needed a really good heavy. You couldn't do any better than him back in the 80s. You just couldn't.
He was good.
I was delighted when I saw the movie Red. Even though he had a small part in it, it was great seeing him back.
Yeah.
But Treat, I like Treat Williams. Loved him in Hair and everything. But when he started going a little bit to the left, as far as overacting, yelling, and carrying on, I mean, it took the menace out of him.
Okay.
For me, at least.
I see. I thought he was
became more clinical.
I'm disagreeing. I liked him in this character, and I liked his. I thought his over the topness kind of went to his. He's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, he's a little bit off. Like he's a little bit not there.
On that edge. He's beyond eccentric. He's kind of power hungry and a little bit nuts.
Yeah.
And
which makes him dangerous. Yeah.
And I think it's just the way he played it. Like I said, I like him and stuff he's been in prior to this. I loved him in 1941.
Oh yeah.
Got egg in my uniform.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to him talk during the interviews of making this movie, and where his mindset was with the character, which made me wonder, okay, if that's where you are, why did you go down this road?
Yeah. Choice actors make
Yeah,
choices.
I don't know. I love the scene where she gives him the skull and she's like, I polished it up with some toothpaste.
Can I just
Really?
Catherine, yeah, and his reaction to it. Catherine Zeta-Jones's Sala is my favorite character in this.
That's why we call her
I
Catherine the Great.
Catherine the Great. I feel like there's supposed to be sequels.
Like
and I feel like we would have seen her again, and I love
her.
Yeah, no,
what
she was a good
think
character.
of her, Chris?
She was, well, the thing of it is, for her, oddly enough, this was a role where she was trying to break type. Up to this point, she had played good girls
Always good
and
people,
everything.
right. She was
a bad person, being one of the bad guys.
But in the end, she became a good.
In the end, she's
but you noticed, like, her whole squadron was women, like all the women were pilots. So it's like all these women pilots. So that was kind of cool. That was very running
around in their underwear.
Actually,
but
actually, for the Phantom, that was one of the things about the Phantom that made it unique. Yeah, as far as women went in the Phantom, both comic strips and everything, the women were always strong in the Phantom history.
Well, I mean, yeah, and even
at a time where
it wasn't normal. They were always the
Phantom's wife.
That's what I was going to say. This
as a hobby, which is what they carried into the movie, that most people didn't know. When she was slugging guys, because that's what she did. That was her
Diana Palmer character, Chris. In her backstory, is she was a boxer in college.
She was an athlete,
right?
She was a boxer. That's what.
Yes.
So it's like, how many women do you know from that era would have been a boxer? I mean, she would have probably
1936.
That kind of
1936. You're right, Chris. So in a way, I feel like this Diana Palmer was kind of toned down a little bit from what the comic book Diana was.
I don't know. She was throwing some punches.
She was a more aggressive character.
Of course, we know Christy from Buffy.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
She's the original Buffy, the film Buffy.
This was probably her last really good role, because you saw less.
Yeah,
you saw less and less of her.
Yeah, you didn't do much after this.
She is still working on TV shows and stuff, but I'm just looking at her IMDb right now. She's out there. You just don't see.
Yeah, she's doing stuff, but not. This was a bigger thing. But yes, I think she was perfect in this role.
Oh, absolutely.
I think she fit well. She did the character well. I mean, certainly she's attractive. So yeah, there's a lot of good chemistry between her and Billy.
And I was looking forward to the sequel because they made sure you knew that she needs to make up her own mind whether or not she's going to hang around with this guy in the jungle at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But nobody says no to the Nobody says no to the Phantom.
Nobody says no to the Phantom.
Nobody says no to the Phantom.
Yes.
Nobody argues the Phantom either.
Yes.
Old jungle saying.
Sure. Old jungle saying.
Yeah.
You don't argue with the Phantom, which was another thing I liked that they did. That was his other tagline, the old jungle saying thing. But
there's some other good mentions, as far as cast in this.
Yes, and I do.
You recognize almost everybody.
The roads.
It's well, you could do the roads if you want. I was going to say, like, watch the film. I mean, I'm not going to go through every single one, but almost every person that's in this film, you kind of recognize from something else.
Yes,
you do. You recognize everyone. Here, I'll zip through the roads super, super fast. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, who we just talked about as our pirate bad guy, he was in Encounter at Farpoint. He was a Mandarin bailiff. Samantha Eggar, she played the mother.
She played Picard's brother's wife.
She played Marie in the 2 episodes Family, or just the 1 episode Family. Bernard Cates, he played Falkmore the butler. He played Sigmund Freud in Phantasms. Bill So how do I pronounce it? Smitrovich. He played Uncle Dave Palmer. That's the uncle that sends her. He played Webb in Deep Space Nine episode Past Tense Part 1 and Past Tense Part 2. Leon Russum, who played Mayor Krebs, he played Admiral Todman in the Deep Space Nine episode The Die is Cast. And finally, this is someone who you don't really see, John Prosky. He was just a cycle cop. He was just a cop in the background of one of the scenes.
Yeah.
He was on Deep Space Nine, a character named Bratha in For the Cause, and he played a character named Otrin in a Voyager episode called Friendship 1. So there are a couple of cool roads to Star Trek.
Yeah. But, I mean, I loved how they kept, I mean, the jungle was, you got in essence to see two jungles. The jungle where the Phantom lives and the urban jungle of New York during the 30s.
That's a great way to look at that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You kind of go from the Bengali jungle, which is a made up place, which I agree. If you look at the natives, they definitely have an Indian look. So I believe it is some kind of maybe island or someplace near India.
Sure.
Although it was shot in Thailand.
It was shot in Thailand.
Yes.
And apparently it
rained
and
everything else.
Season. All rain. They had 23 days of rain or something like that.
And what I liked about it too is a lot of the effects were practical.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell where they used back screen.
Yeah, the truck hanging the kid from the truck that was on the rope bridge.
Right. No, that was a practical effect, but they added the canyon to make it.
Yes, they added the canyon to make it look deeper. And I think they shot the kid hanging against a green screen.
Yeah. I mean,
the skulls, like when they fly up on their own. But keep in mind, this was 96, so CGI was still really in its kind of in its infancy. I mean,
they were still doing a lot of rear screen projection, like your favorite part with the seaplane, where they're hanging out on the pontoon and the plane's heading for the mountain.
Right.
You can subtly tell where this part of it is green screen.
Sure, yeah, you can tell.
And then you can tell the part where
you know what? Part of me, Chris, has that feeling because that was kind of an effect that they would have done like in the 40s with the serial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was like that movie where
Absolutely.
the plane is staying, they're just moving the background or something like that.
Yeah,
and
it had that feel of the cliffhanger that they would done, and so I didn't mind that it was pretty obvious.
I agree.
But it wasn't the whole
the
scene,
suspension of disbelief. The plane's going like, let's even say on the slow side, 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. The horse was able to catch up to it.
Yeah, and pass it. I know.
So there's a lot of suspension of disbelief. You know, little things like I kind of was watching it today, and I'm like, okay, when they have him in the bad guys got him in this big building in New York City, right? They've captured Kit. And he escapes and he goes into that machine room and he changes into the Phantom outfit. So all the time he had the Phantom outfit underneath him with both pistols and nobody bothered to check to find out. Because
I know.
You might get away with the outfit, but
he was wearing a suit and a heavy trench coat, so
he's wearing a trench coat.
And they were holding him by his arms.
I'm not picking on it by any means because it's not that kind of movie. It's just there's little things like that kind of do make me laugh a little bit when you kind of
and of course, why isn't his hands burning up as he's sliding down the thing?
Well, he was using the guns.
He
was using the guns to slow him down. That's why he
but the heat.
You figure, well, enough for the heat transferred. You're right. The guns would have been just pretty much wrecked.
I think the guns would have been sawed through. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought the bullets would have ignited. And,
he's in the water, and the bullets fire, which is possible, but you know.
Right, there's a
lot of things. We don't. I mean, even him hanging on. I mean, let's talk about the seaplane that left from New York and went all the way around the world to some place on one tank. We don't know.
Maybe they were.
We assume so because he was hanging on the pontoon the whole way.
Yeah. And another major mainstay of jungle character movies.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just there's a level of just It's a suspension of disbelief. We're not here for reality. No, we just want to have. And this movie is just has fun, and that's really the best way.
It is. It's so much fun.
It's a great popcorn movie. We've said that before. You can sit there, you watch this. You can watch this pretty much with any age, family type. It's a good movie, and it's really, like I said, it's just entertaining. And I really wish they had made more.
Yeah,
I agree.
even,
Genre.
even
I
the
don't.
music in this movie, you don't hear much about it.
Yeah.
But I love the theme music they played at the end of this. And it was like, I mean, the music gave it a lush jungle feel
Yes.
as well. I mean, it just added to an already beautifully, lavishly photographed film.
Yeah,
I
what's
mean,
interesting? I noticed on the clip that you the documentary you sent us, the music they used on that was from, I believe, another Paramount film called Flight of the Intruder, which was a Vietnam
I
Navy
don't know.
film. It was a great
You may
movie.
have
Do that
Danny
sometimes,
Glover.
though.
Great movie. But yeah, I if you haven't seen Flight of the Intruder, I recommend it. Came out around the same time.
Oh,
as
I'll
this.
check it out. See
Yeah,
if they did use the same
The,
folks.
the
Yeah.
composer for this movie was a guy named David Newman. He's done a ton of stuff, and he did
Yeah.
get an Academy Award for the very next year. He got an Academy Award for a movie called Anastasia. So yeah, he's pretty prolific. He's got a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, Simon Windsor, who directed this, I mean, look at his credits. Free Willy on one side, Lonesome Dove on the
And
other.
that was interesting, Chris. Did you hear that story about how they actually wanted the guy that directed Gremlins, and they wanted him to
Joe
direct?
Dante?
Yes, they wanted Joe Dante to direct this, and Joe actually tweaked the script a little bit. And there was, because I was watching Siskel and Ebert, and they were split. Ebert loved it, and Siskel hated it. And what they think happened was Joe had tweaked the script and added some things. And when he left the project and they brought the new director in, they didn't change it. And some things that were meant to be funny, they didn't realize was to be funny. And some things that were not funny, like it was just a weird little thing going
That
on.
may explain my problem with Treat Williams. Maybe those few tweaks that you just mentioned may be where I thought he lost it, because the way he talked about it in the beginning, especially with that 1930s 40 vibe he had, and with the way he performed it, which wasn't in a major film.
Yeah,
I'd expect that in a serial, but not in a movie. But
not in the movie.
that may have been some of the tweaks, not knowing to play it for laughs or play it seriously.
Seriously, yeah,
I don't. You may be talking about.
But I'd heard that story that some things were left over from when Joe was going to direct, and then they didn't change them. And
that would explain a lot of what I thought was confusing.
Yeah. But you know what? Honestly, it did not affect my enjoyment of it.
Oh, no, not at all.
I
loved it. In fact, I just watched it again today. I watch it every time it's on television. I love it. I just did a quick run of about half of the serials, and I watched the unreleased pilot just to refamiliar. And it's interesting, when I watched that pilot, I didn't realize the first time I watched it, film buff, that all those people were in it.
Yeah.
But this time, since I was more researching it than watching it, and I saw that, I went, what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I commend Simon, the director, and Billy Zane for, they really did their homework.
Zane loved doing this character. Rarely he gets to play the hero, the good guy, and he gave it everything. He trained for a year. His fighting style was unique. And if you notice, one of the things I really loved about the fight scenes, the lack of jump cuts.
Yes, but did you hear Billy Zane? Billy Zane said I think in that clip you sent us,
yes,
that he said, I studied the way he moved in the comic, like the way he was depicted as moving. He was kind of cat-like in the comic.
Yes.
He's like, I was trying to move like that. Like I was trying to move like the character. I was like, wow, you.
Yeah, he definitely threw himself into this role.
He threw himself
like they said, he used to go out for sushi
in his costume,
in his outfit.
Yeah.
I have a
Oh
friend
yeah, you could tell he was really relishing this, even when he was interviewed, which for me is one of the biggest shames he didn't get the chance to do more.
Yes, it makes you think, oh man, imagine if this had become a series. I think
that's the most frustrating thing. God, it was
right?
great, and what we got to miss because of.
There she is. Hi, Papa.
Oh, there we
I'm
are.
being
She
attacked.
likes the
I
Phantom.
would
Somebody wants
introduce you to
attention, and
Flora,
she
but
wants it
she's
now.
already in bed with the wife, so
Okay.
Yeah.
she's already sleeping. But oh yeah, I would
Oh
have
my gosh,
loved to have seen more of this.
You
It
jealous?
was one of the and it was
jealous?
set up so beautifully to continue it along. Too, I think that's what broke my heart about it.
It had potential.
Oh,
Yeah,
so much potential.
I really loved it, and I think for maybe the general audiences, it was a little too
Well,
a little
I
too
think what it is the
kid like,
studio.
I guess. It wasn't even for the 90s. It wasn't dark
Well,
enough.
the thing of it is, it's gotten more love now because it's part of the 30s 40 trilogy. And the thing of it is too, the studios misread the public at that time.
Mm.
When they saw Indiana Jones and everything, they immediately thought, "Oh, people are loving this," and they're not thinking action, adventure, the
Yeah, you
mystery.
need to
They're
know
thinking-
exactly what people are loving.
They
About
yes,
it,
they
yeah.
thought the wrong thing. They thought, oh, people love movies that took place in the 30s and 40s with the fedora and the clothes and everything. So naturally, we started getting a whole plethora of that. Dick Tracy, the Rocketeer, the Shadow, the Phantom. Now, if we all remember what people were kind of wearing and everything in the 80s and late 70s, nothing could be farther from the truth, unless, of course, you're me, because I was. I was on a Bogart bent way before it was popular.
So
But
my
the thing of
dog's
it is,
Sue was asking what my dog's name is. That's her
and
name
that
is.
was not the case,
Can't get a
at
word
least
in.
then.
Can't get a word in. He just keeps
I'm
talking.
sorry.
Like Chris.
Go for it. If I'm talking through my pirate hat,
He has
tell me.
lots to talk about. No, Sue was asking what my dog's name was. That's all. I was trying to tell her. Her name is Ripley.
Oh,
Yeah, I
he's-
Named after Ripley from Alien.
Yeah, named after Ripley. Well, in the chat, Antoine Wilson agrees with us. Sadly, true, it didn't catch on. What a shame. Bill, I thought I just put the clip on YouTube, making of the Phantom, and it's a whole bunch of that background stuff, including Billy saying that he's trying to walk like the character, and a couple of things that we've been talking about tonight. So I just put that in. Hello, David Dykes. And Terry Morgan is saying that we need 3 sequels: a Phantom sequel, a Shadow sequel, and he wants John Carter. You mean, Terry, do you mean John Carter of Mars? That one? Yeah.
Probably. I didn't think that was such a bad movie. I think it was just maybe the release timing for it was wrong. And again, I think also it suffers from it. Most people don't know who John Carter is.
Yeah, that was. I think that movie suffered from lack of. Again, I think I keep bringing up Valerian, but I think it was the same thing. Where in this country, it just wasn't mainstream enough for us that people caught him. I think if people I think John Carter was more of a household name. I think that film. I don't think I agree. The film wasn't that bad. It was pretty good. I think overall, if you liked the story of John Carter, but
if you're familiar with the story, I mean,
But people are fickle in that way. You never know what's going to strike and what's going to hit and what's not. And you think this is going to be great. And we've learned now that effects don't drive a movie, doesn't a popularity anymore. I mean, we expect now a certain level of effects.
Yeah. The Matrix pretty much settled that one.
I'm amazed.
The Matrix, everyone was trying to outdo it.
Right, but the original Matrix had a good story to it as well. It wasn't just the effect.
When was Jurassic Park? Matrix was
92 or 93.
So we were at that level of. So this was 96. This thing was 96. So we were at that level.
Yeah,
but they were still. It still was kind of early in the sense that that was a Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg.
That was a full ILM. That was cutting edge for them to do.
And I think they were gun shy of. Like you brought up the point about how I think they kind of shied away from that on purpose because, like you said, they wanted to go for a more 30s, 40s vibe.
Yeah, I think the practical effects in this movie work way better than if they had CGI'd a lot of it.
Yeah,
I think they used the CGI where they needed to make the skulls work, and I think for the most part it worked. But I loved all the set building that they did.
The whole city,
fabulous.
The whole jump car thing would have been CGI.
Right.
and
I
everything
mean,
else, and knowing that it was a real guy
you
doing
don't even
that.
realize today how much CGI you see because
Because it
even in
looks
a
so
regular
real.
TV show, they'll show a regular city street, and half of that is CGI to make the cars the right where they need to be, the parking lot, certain level
Yeah.
of full or empty. They will redo all these scenes just to make it the exact way they want it, rather than shooting it that way first.
You guys, check Darren Doctor either on
Darren
his,
Doctorman was a good, he
on his Facebook or maybe on his own website. He shows a clip where it was just a shot of like a parking lot, and he digitally added.
that was from
driving.
Bosch.
Yeah,
that was from the TV
Bosch.
show Bosch, and it's the LAPD. It's
And
the
he
actual,
literally, guys,
it's the actual LAPD, and he shows it what the original shot was, and then how
then
they cleared out and added cars, and then
and
made
guys,
the car.
I can't tell the difference. If
Just-
no one had
and
told
it's
me,
not
I would
even
be
a
like, oh, they
special
just shot
effects
it.
shot. It's just it's a car driving through a parking
You're
lot.
driving through a parking lot, but I don't know that it's computer. I don't know
Yeah,
that.
but that's my point. Is right now we're at a level where you won't even know when you're
tell the
watching
difference, yeah.
stuff.
Well, they have human beings doing the role of animals
Yeah.
rather than having to train
Yeah, I mean,
animals
Well, yeah.
to
We're gonna get to the point
to
where they
do
won't
it.
need
I mean, the
actors.
wolf and the
And
phantom,
everything's gonna
they
be
used the
computer
real wolf.
generated.
Today they have a person
Yeah, nowadays they would do a
CGI
digital
him
wolf.
and
Yeah.
have him act out the part.
Okay. Well, we're past the hour, guys. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
great though, Chris.
Already?
I didn't want, but so let's just I don't know. Final thoughts. It's a great movie. I mean, that's my final thought. Go watch if you haven't seen it.
Oh,
watch it.
yes.
You'll
Go
like
watch
it.
it.
If you don't
I
like
think it's
it, I
gotten
mean,
better in time.
It's
You
a
know.
I think
period
it's gotten
piece,
better in
guys.
time.
I think it's like $3 to rent on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on
Well
Amazon
worth it.
Prime.
Oh,
Well
I
worth
mean,
it.
you just can't go wrong. If you want to have a movie where you sit back and just have fun, this is the movie for you, whether you know about the Phantom or not.
I agree. You do not need to know the backstory to enjoy this film.
Nope.
So.
I gotta say this out loud because Terry just posted. Someone asked Terry how he's doing. Terry says, "I'm doing great. I lost 110 pounds."
Wow,
You
great
were
for you. Good for you.
Yeah,
Terry.
I just
His
talked to him recently. He sounds
diabetes
wonderful.
is getting better, and he might be getting off his CPAP machine.
Great. Good for you.
Terry, that's awesome.
Good for you.
That is awesome.
So
Special-
who's got? What's Phil got coming up? Not
Phil is, you know what? Phil is not on tomorrow night, but Friday night he will be doing an hour of jazz in tribute to the WUSB jazz DJ George Rudolph, who just passed and whose funeral will be on Saturday. Roy has two things coming up on Friday. This Friday, so today's Wednesday, so Friday, he's doing Destination Moon. Destination Moon is from 1950, and it's It is an Academy Award winner for Best Visual Effects, and it's noted as the first major American science fiction film to deal with the practical, scientific, and engineering aspects of space travel. Like we look nowadays, we're like, you know, that movie The Martian? We're like, yeah, that was really realistic. But this was one of the first ones to do that. And then later in January, on January 27th, Roy will have very special guest Patrick Reed Johnson. And you guys should remember that name because he is the guy who did the movie 5/25/77. We reviewed that movie and Roy reviewed that movie. It's the movie about Star Wars and about making movies as a kid.
Yeah.
So he will be talking to him on the 27th. So tune into Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi.
A good one.
Rizzo, what do we have coming up?
I don't know.
Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm falling.
I wanted to do the
surprise.
prophecies.
It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise.
You guys don't know, you'll know.
You're never disappointed.
Oh, Martin says he picked up 5/25/77. I hope you like it, Martin. It's a really great film.
It's really good. It's really good. I really enjoy it. Even my wife loved it, and she's not a sci-fi person. She likes Star Wars, of course, but not, you know. So even if you don't, I think if you grew up around that time, like you're our age, my age, you're in your 50s, 60s,
my age,
you will enjoy. If you remember 5/25/77, and you remember the 70s, you will really love it.
Oh yeah,
Phil Sotak added that Roy's show Destination Moon. It was written by Robert Heinlein.
I don't know. Okay, on that note, Chris, thank you so much for coming.
Yes, Chris, thank you. You're such a good
I'm sure you could have talked for another hour on this because you're just.
I loved every minute of it. I hope I didn't monopolize.
No, you didn't. You came prepared. That's what we love.
No, we enjoy that. That's good.
We
it makes
love
it easier for us.
You came with the information, and that's what we're about.
I'm sure. Yes, look, we had a good.
I
crowd
loved every
tonight.
minute
Thanks
of it.
Everybody for
Thank
joining
you for
us.
having me back.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
You're welcome.
If there's some other movie, let me know. If there's
Well,
some
let's do
passionate
the
about
shadow.
something.
Now we have to do the shadow. Like
You have to do the shadow. I've never, I've seen the modern one with what's his name?
Alec Baldwin.
Alec
Alec
Baldwin. Yeah.
Baldwin.
That's
Yeah,
the one.
I haven't seen that one.
We'll have to do it.
Well, if you're going to do that, may I suggest the serial with Victor Jory, who really
Is
did
it
look
like
like the
compare
Shadow.
and contrast?
Compare
Is
and
that what you're
contrast
Yeah.
the Shadow movie.
saying? Okay.
Maybe Green Hornet? No.
Or maybe Green.
Ah,
No, that one
oh,
was bad.
please,
Because
God.
that had
No,
what's
not
his
the
name? That had
Rogan Hornet.
Zeth
Not the
Seth,
Rogan
Seth,
Hornet.
yeah,
I'll
I know
cry.
yeah, the guy from I always think of him from 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah, I'll cry. That'll kill me.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think that
we'll
one was
do-
very
We'll
good.
do John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
sometime.
Maybe John Carter. Yeah, that
Maybe
might be
John
a good
Carter.
one. Maybe we'll
Why
do John
not?
Carter.
All right, guys.
All right. Till
Live
next time,
long
live
and
long and
prosper.
prosper. Everybody stay safe. I hope anybody who's in the Northeast, we're getting snow.
We're
So,
getting snow.
Yes,
Everybody's
I heard.
all right.
Stay warm, you guys.
Good night, folks.
Good night.